What is up, gang? Bob White, Maumee River Fishing. Well, I am going to show you how to replace a reel seat. Broke this reel seat. This is a Pfluger President factory grip, factory reel seat, factory everything. And as you can see, that is supposed to be attached to this. So when it slides, but must have tightened it too tight this walleye season, and it cracked off when I loosened her up. So here's what you do. Basically, you're going to take some pliers, and the first thing you got to do is get this cork off. So you're just going to grab chunks of it with the plier, like this. Start pulling it off. You're not going to get all of it. You're going to get most of it, but there are going to be some spots where the epoxy was really thick, and it will leave some of the cork on the rod blank. Don't worry about that. We're going to cover it up, and the bottom line is, doesn't matter. It's all cosmetic, so you won't see it. But as you can see here, once you get it started, you can really just start grabbing big chunks of this stuff, and it'll come right off. Just be careful not to hit your rod blank and put marks in it and destroy it. You definitely don't want chunks taken out of the rod blank, and you can do that with these pliers. So again, just be careful. And all you're doing is going around trying to get as much off as you can. In a minute, we're going to take a dull knife blade to get the rest of this off by just scraping it up and down. Again, a dull knife blade, nothing sharp. No reason to, again, need it completely clean. You just want it 95, 96% clean, somewhere in there. So again, we can speed this up. We'll show you how it works, and I'll be back in a minute when we're all said and done. Alright, so here's some spots that aren't coming off, just so you can see it's completely fine. Don't worry. If it looks like this, don't worry. Just set it over a garbage can so it's easier to just drop them. Now on a lot of these rods, you have this two-tone cork down here. That's rubber. That's not going to chip off like this does, so you're going to have to grab it and start taking either chunks of it off or just try to wiggle all of it off. A lot of times it's just a cap over the end and it doesn't have much epoxy on it, so they're usually pretty easy to wiggle off. Alright, let's see if we can pull that off now. Again, you got that end butt on there, you can kind of see that. Worked it down to just a nub. There we go. Popped her right off. You can see that was just glued to the end. Really, nothing more, nothing less. That's what you're left with. Kind of a messy rod blank. Again, we'll take the rest of this off, going all the way up to the top of the reel seat. You might start to get a little bit of arbors, which are basically little tape areas where maybe the grip was a little bit larger and they needed to shore it up, so they used some tape. Like that. See that black? That is an arbor. And that's what we're going to do when we put the new reel seat on. Yeah, they're actually arbored up in kind of a spiral fashion on this one. Never really seen that. Good idea though. Allows you to get the epoxy all over. As you can see, it doesn't want to release. That's alright. Again, don't worry. what we got. All right, so again, camera fell a little bit. We just took some pliers and just tried to mull that down as much as we can so that this is now what our rod blank looks like. This we're going to cut off, and we're going to take a little Dremel tool to do that. So again, give me a minute here and we'll do the next step, which is just cleaning this rod blank up with a dull knife. Alright guys, we're going to cut this reel seat off real quick, and that way I can show you guys how that's done, and then I'll clean up this rod blank after that. So in this case, all you want to do is just expose as much of it as possible. You're always going to see a little line down there. That's usually to keep this thing from spinning. That's usually where I'll go, but you want to cut it on the top and the bottom. That way you're getting like 50% off at a time. Again, here's my Dremel. It's a cheap one, Harbor Freight. Key is to go slow and don't go too deep. That is the absolute key. And more speed. The good side of this is this blank is very small, so I can actually see there's a good 1/4 inch gap between the reel seat and the blank. So at the end here, I'm noting how deep this is, and that way I'm going to try to keep it that deep as I go down the whole blank. Now keep in mind the blank does get thicker as you go down, so that gap's going to be smaller. We'll just get this out of the way. Normally you'd have to cut that, but in this case we can just slide it off since it's broken. Really what this does is melts it more than cut, but you end up with a cut. So the other thing is most reel seats are put on with arbors, which is tape. So if you cut and all of a sudden you see something that looks white, don't worry, it's usually tape. Sometimes they're foam arbors, but either way, it's usually just an arbor. Alright, and that is about what we want. Now, let me show you this up close. What we did is just cut a line right through there, because what we're going to do is pop a screwdriver in there and pry it apart and split it into 2 pieces. Now we're going to do the exact same thing to the opposite side at approximately, say, 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock. So give me a minute, I'm going to do that. We'll be right back. So here we're going to cut the other half of that and get that reel seat off, and then we're going to clean her up. We'll show you what we're going to do here. Again, just go slow, right at the other side. Say if one's 12 o'clock, the other would be 6 o'clock, or one's 3 o'clock, one's 9 o'clock. You get the picture. Just going real slow here. Now we got to go get a screwdriver and we're gonna pry this sucker off. Sit tight, we'll be right back. Alright guys, welcome back. So all we're going to do is take a flathead screwdriver here and we're going to put it in this crack and twist it. And look at that, man. Look how easy that lifts right off. Can you see that? Alright, so now let's see if we can get half of this off real quick. There we go. Wiggle it just a little bit. Pop this other half free. A lot of epoxy on this. There we go. And there we have it. We got half of that off. The other half off. Now this should slide right off. Gonna have to cut this a little bit to get her down over that, but we're pretty much there, gang. Alright guys, let me show you how to clean this rod blank up so that we can prep it to get her ready for the next reel seat. For starters, this is what I use. This is just a dull knife, an old pocket knife with a hammer, like a Leatherman type tool. This thing is as dull gets. It's just a strong blade. Now, I've got a small alcohol burner here, a little alcohol candle, torch, whatever you want to call it. And what we're going to do is just kind of roll this cork around. We can start at either end, doesn't really matter, but we just want to roll it over the flame and get her warm, not warping hot. You do that, you're going to end up warping your rod, you're done. So again, just get her warm. Spin it, feel it. Once she starts to get a little bit warm, take that knife, always draw it away from you, and just start ripping it off. Like a Boy Scout whittling the old Pine Derby cars. And what you'll end up with is being able to grab this epoxy just like I did so that it comes off in chunks of glue almost, and just keep heating it and go on to the next one. Time being, let's just show you where we're at here. You can see the end of that tip there is pretty clean. We'll go back and sand it just a little bit, but again, it's cosmetic at this point. So just keep heating it, working up the shaft of the rod blank, and doing the same thing over and over again in little, I like to do it in about 1-inch sections, truthfully. That way I know the epoxy's nice and warm and it's not too hot, and it doesn't cool before I end up getting it off. Keep going up. In a second here, when I get done with this lower grip, I'll show you what she looks like. Now that there's not a lot of cork left, I'm going to work in about 2 to 3 inch sections. So what I just took off in 3 heat sections, I guess you could say, I'm doing about the same in 1 this time. Alright, dragging that blade up and down that blank. We are almost there, boys and girls. A little tricky doing this outside because the wind doesn't want to let my candle get tall. The flame's short, which makes it a little complicated because you normally don't like to keep your rod blank this close. Normally want to keep it about 3 or 4 inches above the candle. Sticky on there, but alright guys, that's what she looks like. Pretty clean right up until where the reel seat was. Now we're going to do the same thing where that reel seat was, but before we do that we need to tape it off to mark where the new reel seat's going to go. You don't want to change positions, otherwise that rod or that line's not going to hit that first guide on the bottom like it should. So again, bear with us here. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to show you this next step, and we'll get this bad boy going.